Welcome to Noble Fury Podcast. Today, Jeff, we're sort of an extension on one of our previous episodes, the one about leaving California, which is something I did. But the end result is the same. Why do people move to Tennessee? That's where we are. Why did we move here? Why did I move here? Why did you move here?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. A lot of people move for a lot of different reasons, but you can kind of collect the data and analyze it, and you can kind of see patterns form. And so one of the patterns is that people like to have freedom, economic freedom, political freedom, social freedom, whatever freedom.
Business regulation freedom.
That's a principal one. And I think Tennessee does especially well in the category of economic freedom, business freedom, freedom from regulation. But one of the things that Tennessee does so well is they organize government so that they're fiscally responsible. And what do I mean? Just like your dad...
Not over budget, you mean?
Not over budget. So just like your dad told you when you were a kid growing up, live within your means, the state of Tennessee lives within its means. And there is a cascade of beneficial effects from living within your means. And one of them is that you are not constantly having to raise taxes.
Yeah.
In fact, Tennessee is one of the several states in the union that don't have an income tax.
9 states don't, only 9.
Yeah.
And Tennessee's one of them.
Tennessee pretty much lives off of its sales tax revenue.
Which is interesting because, Jeff, as you may know, the sales tax in Tennessee is 10, approximately, it varies, I think, is 10%, give or take.
Yeah. But that's true that the total is, but some of that's county tax.
Sure.
I think the state portion is a little over 7%.
So if you're in Williamson County, you're paying around a little over 10%.
No, it's about 9 something in Williamson County. I think in Davidson County, which is Nashville proper, it is close to 10%, but not quite at the 10% mark.
What I was going to say was because of the you were mentioning about the taxes, and that they don't have the high income tax. They have no income tax, and they're basically running their state budget based, as you mentioned, on sales tax. California, which we will get into quite a bit, where I came from, not originally, but moved from, you had a approximately 10.5 or 10.75 sales tax and some of the highest income taxes. So you had both. Somehow Tennessee is able to do this on 50% of the infrastructure and the whole.
The highest, I believe, the highest rate in California income tax rate is 13%. So that's on top of your federal your federal tax percentage. So if you are at the highest tax bracket, say 39% federally, then 13% on top of that from the state of California.
Suddenly you're in Sweden.
Yeah, in fact, but Sweden gets a bad rap because it has gone through different periods over the years, particularly the last 100 years, where it has been socialist, and then it's kind of reformed and become much more a capitalist in nature, free market oriented. It's always done better when it has been more free market. But in many ways, Sweden does things that are in some ways much more libertarian, much more free market than even the United States. They have lower taxes in some categories.
And speaking of Sweden, and I didn't bring it up on purpose, but there's an interesting parallel because of short, partial, little pros and cons list about why people might move to Tennessee. So if you're out there and you're like me and my wife and our family, we were trying to decide where should we move? We're leaving California. It's over. Where are we going and why? And so some of the things to consider quickly. I mean, and this is in random order. One of the biggest assets that the state of Tennessee offers people is the outdoor recreation. I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, you have the Mississippi River, you have the Appalachian Mountains, Mississippi Rivers to the sort of the west side of the state, Appalachian Mountains sort of to the east side of the state, the Great Smoky Mountains. There's a national park. There's waterfalls, fantastic camping, world-class hiking.
Are they called Smoky Mountains because a lot of people in the South still smoke cigarettes?
We're not going to get into the obesity and smoking rates, are we? Because
well, it's one of the things.
Tennessee has a poor. That is, we're being funny, but it is part of the equation. But the point I was going to make quickly about the Great Smoky Mountains National Park is I believe it is the most well-attended. It's the number one attended national park in the country.
Yeah.
It's partially
absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. It's partially because of it. And this is another thing on my list quickly. If you think about where Tennessee is, it's in the middle of the country. So if you're going from the Midwest to Florida, or if you're going from Florida up to, you're kind of in the middle. And that's one of the reasons we picked it. We have a place in northern Michigan where I'm originally from Detroit. And in northern Michigan, Tennessee happens to be about 12 hours from Michigan, and it's 12 hours from Florida. My mom spends half her year in Florida and half her 6 months in one day, if the IRS is listening, in Florida, and 5 months and 29 days in Michigan. And so we were 12 hours either way. And I do think people are driving through and they're like, hey, we got a day. Let's hit the Great Smoky Mountains National Park.
It really is a transportation hub. And you could see that with all the logistics firms that are headquartered here in Nashville. A lot of transportation comes through via I-40 or I-65. And so it makes its way west or north or south or east coming through the hub.
Yeah. So the next thing on my list is the low cost of living in Tennessee. According to Forbes magazine in 2024, Tennessee was the 6th most affordable state in the country out of the 50 states. Pretty impressive.
Yeah. How is that broken out, though? So affordability in what dimension? Is milk cheaper here? Is milk cheaper here?
I'm going to explain that. It's an amalgamation, and you know how that goes. You could make, if you wanted to play with those stats, you could pick certain categories and make it high, make it low. So there is a little bit of a
wiggle room, fuzziness.
Yeah, sure, fuzzy logic. Where's that been? So it was an approximate amalgamation of real estate, property taxes, groceries, utilities, and transportation. Now, I will mention a couple of things. One, luckily, Tennessee has lower utility rates, and people move here. They do notice electricity it's not cheap. It's cheaper. Water, not cheap, cheaper.
Gasoline tends to be cheaper here than it is in many states. And part of the reason is that the taxes that are applied to fuel, right? Now, some states have very high in Illinois, in Chicago area, the gasoline tax is very high. And so you'll see prices of gasoline there be $1 or more higher than they are here. In California, gasoline
highest gas tax in the country, I think.
Gasoline's $3 or $4 more there per gallon than it is here.
Sure, can be.
And so a lot of that is taxes. Now, where Tennessee's fuel is high is in the category of diesel. So I think
diesel's high across,
No, if you travel around the country, diesel
the trucks are driving through Tennessee like crazy, right?
They're driving through Tennessee. The state puts a higher fuel tax on diesel to capture more revenue from the interstate traffic. And so we just got back from a visit to New England, and we were in Boston, and we were
You drove.
We drove. We did the old fashioned family vacation
From Middle Tennessee to
we drove.
This
we went
is something that you could do from Middle Tennessee. You can get to the East Coast.
We went through Connecticut, and we went through Rhode Island, and we went through Massachusetts, and we went into New Hampshire. We went into Maine. And then we came around and went through New York, saw Niagara Falls, and then back through Indiana, Kentucky, and so forth.
You got a lot of stickers on your car. A lot of cool travel stickers.
But the one thing that we noticed was, and we don't have a diesel vehicle, but I track, as an economist, I track things like diesel fuel.
Sure.
And so diesel is $1 cheaper per gallon, or almost $1 cheaper per gallon in New England than it is here.
Which is shocking, right?
Sales tax, though, say we were in Boston for 3 days. Sales tax is 10%. So you go to a dinner
with an income tax. You're saying that's a partner
with an income tax,
heavy income tax,
and very high property tax too, by the way. But you spend a couple $100s on a dinner while you're traveling, and that's $20 of tax on that bill.
Mm-hmm. We should do an episode on tipping.
And by the way, if you put a tip on that as a percentage, you're going to pay an extra % on the tip, on the tip for the tax.
You're always one just move ahead, Jeff. So another thing on the list, one little addendum to this conversation.
Hey, by the way, if you like this content, please like and subscribe. It really helps grow the station, the channel, the content, everything that we do. We want to, do the best thing for you. I hope you enjoy this.
We'll send you a tote bag. Maybe not yet. We don't have tote bags.
Maybe these will be coming soon.
A coffee mug. Okay.
Maybe these.
Back to this quickly. I mentioned transportation, groceries, and property taxes, utilities, and transportation. A little sort of addendum to that is, and I like to tell this. We moved from California. We got to Tennessee, and I had to go register our cars, and it was $48, and it took 15 minutes. In California, you can do it online. But before that, if you have a problem or something anomaly to do with your registration, you go to DMV. It's a 3 or 4 hour minimum time in line. Let that wash over for a minute. Just take most of your day. And we paid approximately $400, north or south of $400 per car to register our cars in California per year. $40 to $400.
Crazy.
Really, just kind of nuts. And by the way, in California, in Tennessee, you have a 30-day window. You have a 30-day temporary. You get here, you have 30 days to register your car. In California, you have 0 days. You have to register it the day, so you have to plan. They start penalizing you the day you get there. 24 hours after you get there, you have to register your car, or you start paying a penalty.
Wow.
So it's really
very
aggressive.
onerous. They don't give you a grace period.
Yes. So another thing quickly on the pros and cons, affordable homes and property taxes. We talked about this a minute ago. I think the median price for a home in Tennessee aggregate across the state is about $325,000. While that's not necessarily low per
That's
se.
lower than the national average, though.
Sure, it's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money for a home, right? In this day and age, in this housing market.
By the way, most homes in Tennessee come with at least a third of an acre or half of an acre
property.
Lots. You're also getting some land, which is an unusual thing for many parts of the country.
Yeah. Next on the list, pros and cons, mild winters. I wrote in parentheses here, not like the Detroit Midwest winters where you have lake effect snow and it's cold for 6-7 months of the year. We have snow here for 6 weeks. Yeah. We have temperatures in the 20s. And
so it can be more. So depending on the particular year, you can get snow, a measurable snowfalls, say in January and February. They can leak into early March, but that's not typical.
It's usually for a day or two, though.
It's great. But the one thing that I think is even better than the mild winters, relatively mild winters, it can get cold. Your pipes froze a few years ago.
Well, that's where we had that crazy below zero.
That was like 10.
These homes aren't built for that.
That was 10 below zero.
Yeah, the air temperature was 10 below zero.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
So it can get bitterly cold, but that's not typical. But
the Russians' fault. They came from Russia. That polar vortex. Sorry.
The mild autumns and the mild springs. My favorite time of year is the fall and spring.
Sleeping at night with your window open, quiet.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, breeze, the whole deal. Yeah, that's
now
all.
The
big
summers
part
can be very hot, and so
you're getting to my cons.
Okay.
You're jumping ahead quickly. Next thing, a couple more quick. I'll just do two together. No state income tax, which we've talked about. Only 9 states don't have it. Tennessee's one of them, and the other is the live music. We're obviously outside Nashville, in the greater Franklin area, but one of my metrics is like if you're in Detroit or you're in LA, by comparison. Do the national acts tour through your town, right? Can you go see your favorite bands, the biggest bands? When they come, do the Eagles, does U2, does Taylor Swift, do these people come to the town you live in or around the town you live in? You pay a price if you're in one of these outlier towns and you can't go see some of your favorite acts. So that's another thing. The culture, obviously, the country music culture, or pop country music now, it's not really. So then quickly, some cons. And I'll just rip through these, Jeff, quick. There's a high crime rate. Tennessee has a high crime rate, a shockingly high crime rate. It's one of the highest crime rates in the country. I think some of it is isolated, not unlike a lot of states. Yeah, there's areas that are
so Memphis
struggles. Memphis struggles.
Has a very high crime rate, and that affects the whole state.
Sure.
So there are parts of Chattanooga.
And Memphis, by the way, in case you don't know, just so our audience knows, it's 4 hours from Nashville.
It is. Yeah, it's at the southwestern corner of the state.
And Nashville proper has some crime problems.
For sure. There are areas. Any big city does. But and I'm not trying to gloss it over because it is an issue. But let's just put that in perspective. I jotted down a note here. So in 2023, there were 1,570 firearm deaths in the state. So any type of firearm, and throughout the entire state, not just Nashville, not just
that sounds
Memphis,
low.
1,570. But what a lot of people don't look at in these statistics when they first see that headline number, most of those are typically suicides. And that's true here, even in Tennessee. So about 900 of the 1,570 were suicides and 600 were homicides. So so you might see a high, firearm-related or death rate or death level, death amount. So in the nation, that number has crept up to be about 45,000 or so. But again, half of those are suicides of some type.
Is 1,500 nationally? I wonder where that falls in the middle of the 50 states.
So if you go to the Northeast, Maine has very low death levels by firearms. So like 60 in a year or something, 70. So
Obviously smaller per capita.
Smaller population. Many New Hampshire, Vermont, very small populations. You're going to see low numbers. I was going to say, put this in perspective, the nationwide 44,000 or 45,000 roughly fatalities due to some kind of handgun or long gun, but that's out of a population of 335 million people.
Yeah.
And so half of those 45,000 are suicides. So, you're going to have, there are 45,000 highway fatalities every year from people driving their cars as well, right?
Sure.
And so it's not a trivial thing. I mean, it's a serious thing.
Yeah, the crime in Tennessee is disturbingly high. As a statewide rate.
But again, if you look at the state, but if you then try to focus in, you'll see that it's most of it is in Memphis.
It would be similar, I would assume, to like Illinois with Chicago. If you remove,
in parts of Chicago are much worse than other parts of Chicago.
I would think in Michigan. Sorry, Jeff. I didn't mean to cut you off. In Michigan, if you remove Detroit, perhaps you'd have something. Obviously, you take out that it's not an outlier because it's a big area that covers a lot of people. But moving on to quickly some of the last cons to Tennessee. Terrible infrastructure. And the reason there's a terrible infrastructure here.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the state has been going through this unprecedented growth, which is part of what the purpose of this podcast is to explain so many people moving here. But, it's been going on for more than half a decade. The infrastructure is not keeping up with the infrastructure.
When you say infrastructure, that's what I mean. Can you unpack that?
Construction, roads,
Tennessee has some of the best roads in the country. I can tell you that firsthand from my little trip through 12 states or something.
Yeah.
Literally.
You take it for granted, don't you?
We have some of the best roads I traveled in.
I'm saying if you go to downtown Nashville, there's perpetual construction, not unlike a lot of big metropolitan areas.
Cities entirely new.
But things are torn up. And in Tennessee's roads are pretty good by comparison, for example, to some of the snow belt. Michigan has terrible roads because they salt the roads. In Tennessee, they don't have salt trucks. They don't salt the roads. If it snows, everyone just stays home for a day or two, and it melts or goes away. Or they don't salt the roads, which is what eats the asphalt, which causes the chuck holes, which causes the damage and leads to poor condition of roads. A big part of it. It's also a big environmental concern.
The freeze-thaw cycle does a lot of that up north too.
Right.
So, water gets into a crack and then it expands when it freezes and it makes the crack wider. The crack can then hold more water the next time.
You also add corrosive salt to the edges of it. And
by the way, that corrosive salt does, vehicles that are driving around in Tennessee do not have the telltale rust marks that I saw even to this day. Cars are all galvanized now, but or aluminum. But when I was a kid, vehicles. I grew up in Chicago. They were 3 or 4 years. They were rusted completely.
Well, the fenders are all showing the rust.
You don't see that,
right.
But when we were up north in New England, we saw that. We still saw that.
Yeah. So when I said the roads, I'm just saying it feels like, especially particularly in downtown Nashville, there's cranes everywhere. They're building stuff everywhere. Roads are closed. They're tearing up roads. They're replacing, constantly. They're trying to update the egress and exiting of the freeways because there's more places and there's urban sprawl and it's all part of and they're doing the best they can. They're doing a huge expansion of BNA. BNA, the airport in downtown Nashville that serves, this area, the biggest airport in the state, is going through an incredible growth. It's a problem. The airport was built for a tiny fraction of the number of people flying in and out of it. And so the gates are small, the runways are short.
They've added concourses now.
Sometimes if you go at the wrong time to BNA, you're backed up on the freeway. Like, what is this? It reminds me of LAX, where it's perpetually busy. Wednesday night at midnight, LAX is crowded and full of people, and you're just like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Then the last thing I have on my cons is I wrote hot and buggy summers. It should say hot and muggy and hot and buggy. I read a little blurb about it. Said if you don't like bugs, don't move to Tennessee because the bugs here are legendary. They're big. They're if you're not a bug person, and most of us aren't.
Yeah.
The bugs
keep your small dogs close.
Right. Yeah. A praying mantis come along and snatch up your.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that I had as the pros and cons. Why people things they should take into consideration if thinking about moving to Tennessee.
Yeah. So I want to eventually get to why why we chose to move, to Tennessee. But before that, I kind of want to go through, touch on some of the things that you were just talking about, maybe unpack them a little bit more. So a big draw for people in this state is the job growth. So, lots of jobs available. The lots of jobs are available because firms are relocating here. Lots of firms are headquartering.
Can I say one thing? I'm so sorry on this point that I forgot off my list is the low wages. That is one of the cons in Tennessee. Tennessee state minimum wage is low, and I think now obviously the entry level. It's a pretty aggressive job market, and people, so the minimum wage doesn't necessarily dictate what people are making, but the wages are traditionally lower in this area because of the cost of living, which is what you were starting to say, Jeff. Sorry.
Well, yeah. So the job growth though is happening because firms are relocating to Tennessee.
Cheaper to operate, right?
Lower costs for the firm, though, those costs don't necessarily, it may entail minimum wage, but the kinds of firms that are moving to Tennessee aren't necessarily minimum wage firms. For instance, Oracle has created its world headquarters. Oracle is a software company. They make databases, essentially. Their world headquarters is now here. These are $125,000 a year jobs. Right,
yeah,
or higher.
Did Nissan move their headquarters here?
Yeah, yes, a lot of firms have, and so you have some auto industry here. GM has plants here. Volkswagen moved to Chattanooga. They created a plant there, but these are high paying jobs relatively. Oracle's in particular. Amazon created a regional hub here, and again these are $100,000+ a year jobs. Those jobs are what are fueling the economic boom that you're seeing around you. Those firms wanted to move to Tennessee because of the low regulatory environment that Tennessee offers businesses. So Tennessee ranks very highly on all kinds of different measures. George Mason has a center called the Mercatus Center. George Mason's typically a libertarian sort of influenced university, particularly their economics area department. But this think tank at the Mercatus Center has been doing an annual study of fiscal health and stability, and Tennessee has ranked in the top 5 for a long time. They started doing this, I think, in 2012. And I think the last time they did it was 2018 or 2020, and Tennessee was, ranked 3rd on that list. If you look at other sources such as U.S. News and World Report in their 2025 survey, Tennessee ranked 7th on the list, and in Truth in Accounting, which is a nonprofit that susses through all of the state's political or public spending, and so
economic data.
It's the public spending portion of it.
Sure.
So states claim one thing, but how do they really use their money?
Allocations, yeah.
And again, Tennessee ranked 5th, and so the idea is, these various different studies are all pointing to the fact that Tennessee has a well-run state, right? It goes back to what I said in the beginning of the podcast, that spend within your means.
Yeah.
Right?
I can give you a quick example, Jeff. I registered an LLC when I got here, and I was shocked to see that Tennessee said, you may have to pay some other taxes on other things, but with the state directly, they said if you have income of $50,000 or less, you don't have to file anything, you don't have to pay anything. And they upped that to $100,000 like last year. So up to $100,000, you got an LLC. They're just kind of hands off on your. They're not trying to pick on the little guy. Somebody who's on Etsy.
So it promotes the growth, the development of small
shocked.
businesses. And small businesses are the lifeblood of the U.S. economy.
Sure.
People think it's the big businesses. The small businesses keep people employed. That's where something like approaching 70% of all employment happens in small firms, not the big firms.
Yeah, and by the way, the annual filing fee in the state of Tennessee for an LLC, in California, it's $800. It's a minimum. So if you make nothing, do nothing, you have an LLC, it costs you $800 just to exist. In Tennessee, that number is $330.
Yeah.
A big difference. I had an LLC in California for 20 years. 800 times 20 years, what did I get?
Yeah. Yeah. What did you get for that?
16 grand I gave away. That's crazy, right? So anyway.
So Cato Institute has Tennessee number 4 on its freedom index overall. And has all different kind of components, but fiscal freedom, small government, low taxes. So the idea of having small government is you have a low tax base. You don't expand your government agencies. So they're creating regulations because that's what government agencies do. These bureaucratic entities, the raison d'etre is to create regulations. That's how they evaluate their success.
Which makes us have to maneuver those regulations.
That's right. And it's costly for firms.
Sure.
And it increases costs for the labor market as well. It slows down job creation. So Tennessee is going like gangbusters in the job creation front. And so that is what's causing a lot of the movement from the Northeast and from the West. A lot of Californians are moving to Tennessee. A lot of people from New York and the Northeast, Massachusetts. We moved to Tennessee in 2012.
You are ahead of the curve.
Way ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
I was working. My wife and I were living in D.C. and we had our first child there. And I was working for Fannie Mae. I was, they hired me to rebuild their home price forecast model. The model failed spectacularly in the financial crisis. So I kind of built a new model.
Not your model failed. The model they had.
The model they had
They were
failed.
using prior to yours.
Correct. And so I helped build a new model for them.
How fun.
Yeah.
How cool.
It was a great time to be there. It was kind of like a little Manhattan project.
Yeah, it's really
kind
cool.
of that kind of, bunch of economists and scientists kind of working
I'm not
together.
I'm not being trite to say this. You're working on something that really affects a lot of people. I mean, it's a profound.
Yeah.
Right.
So one of the, so I was very deep into research in housing markets around the country, and I kept a kind of a deck of home price forecast analyses over 102 or 103 MSAs. And so we were always able to sort of study. I'd bring this stuff home to my wife and I'd say, gosh, Nashville is going to be a home run in about 10 years. And
you had your little.
I had my data. My data could see these are changes that happen slowly and then they go fast. And you want to be in early. And so when we were in DC, we weren't in early. There was no chance we were going to live in the neighborhood where we were renting at the time. And,
talk about population density.
Our rent was $3,000 a month, in 2012.
That's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
Yeah.
But we lived in a very nice area. And so, but we had a child and we decided, we need to find some place that's going to be conducive to raising kids. And for us, DC was just not going to be that place.
Same with LA for us. Yep.
So it was a matter then of understanding where to go, and Nashville was among several major cities that I was kind of following that I thought had a lot of room for growth. And so that affordability that you're talking about, housing affordability, was one thing that drew us in. And
bang for your buck, right? In other words,
so quality of life is another thing. And so what do I mean by that? Well, we're not stuck in traffic. When I first moved here, we rented in Nashville. We were in the downtown area, and our apartment was very expensive, but it was not quite $3,000, but it was close. But it was very spacious. 2,700 square feet or something. So it was a very large apartment. And, it was great living down there. We were always walking to restaurants and walking with our daughter to the park and all kinds of fun stuff. we bought a house, and so we moved to Williamson County, and the commute wasn't bad. It was about 25 minutes. So, to compare that to another city where you could
Sure.
afford to buy a nice house and still, you're looking at probably 40-minute commute
Sure.
one way,
Huge quality of life issue,
That's
right?
a quality of life issue,
Yeah.
is how much time you spend in the car.
A daily quality of life.
Also the weather is very nice here. Again, summers are kind of hot for me, but
Not for everybody, but
this summer's been really nice. Actually, it's been great. But the autumn and the spring are lovely, and the winter is mild, generally mild. That's very nice as well. But the proximity to family in Illinois and the proximity of family in Florida and
The same
California,
thing, right?
everywhere, you can kind of get. So Nashville had a solid airport. That was one of the draws. B&A.
part of your Fannie Mae thing, in other words.
Yeah, well, if you
equation.
have a good airport, then you can go places pretty
Sure.
easily and conveniently. You don't have to drive 2 hours to get to a city with a big airport, right?
Sure.
You can fly internationally if you want. So that was a big draw for us. The government being well run, that is fiscally stable,
Operating on budget.
well run government. And so why did I care about that? Well, it suggests that you're not going to have a high tax burden. If whatever tax, the derivation of taxes that's going on is sufficient to maintain the size of government, and by the way, I'm not lacking too many services here as compared to living in Boston or compared to living in New York, which I have done before, right? So, or DC, I have lived there. I know what those governments provide. And honestly, I think government is better run here because it's smaller.
Sure.
And the things they do, they tend to do it better because
Right.
it's smaller.
Nimble.
When you have a large government, it becomes sprawling bureaucracy that's difficult to organize, manage, control. And so you pay high taxes for large government. I'd rather keep that money. And what does it do? It allows you to start businesses. It allows you to make investments. That's how you become fiscally stable yourself, right?
Right.
Is having more of your money.
Regulation costs money to regulate,
It does.
right? It takes people, it takes people power.
Absolutely. And so the real estate situation was very good here. Well-run government, low taxation, the fiscal health, good airports. But for me, it was the quality of schools in Williamson County. These are some of the best schools in the country. So, the high school where my daughter goes now, my son's in middle school. These are, that's like the 250th best public high school in the country.
Out of tens of thousands.
Out of almost 20,000 schools.
Yeah, sure.
A little over 20,000 schools,
There you
actually.
go. That's
So
crazy.
It's crazy how good it is, right?
Yeah.
And so, by the way,
And that speaks to the state and the way they operate.
the whole thing, so our property tax here is relatively low. So I think if you were to try to calculate an overall rate, it's under 1% or right about 1%, but under 1% for us here in Williamson County. I mean, that's fantastic. You can't beat that with high quality schools and low taxes.
Sure.
Some gripes, right? And these are, take them for
Talk about Tennessee. What?
take them for what they're worth. Not everything is perfect, and I think this is an example. Now, again, some may think that these are kind of fussy, and some may think that they're very serious, and that's fine. It's up to you. For me, they're just gripes. So I like sidewalks. I'm a walker. My family are big walkers. We moved to this neighborhood because we have essential sidewalk, but not all the areas, not all the streets have sidewalks. Now, the roads, the streets are wide, and people, they don't park on the street. And so there's plenty of room to walk. And as you know, a lot of people walk around here. It's a very common thing to do. Walk your dog, jog, ride your bikes, and so forth. So our streets are very heavily populated with pedestrians or bicyclists.
And there's not a ton of cars. in
There's
certain
not.
areas.
There aren't a lot of cars, but
houses are spread out. There's just not a lot of people.
I like sidewalks. I think
Sure.
there should be a sidewalk on every front.
Seems reasonable.
I like a sidewalk. I like a proper art museum. And so the Frist Art Museum here, it's an art museum, but it's not that great. Maybe in 50 years.
It's a little avant-garde. It's a little bit. It's not quite a traditional.
It's okay.
Are you saying it's not like a traditional art museum, or is it more?
Well, no, it's just they don't have a lot of pieces that are, sort of a high quality permanent art pieces. And that's fine. St. Louis has a very nice art museum. Chicago has several
You're
very
talking about
nice art
traditional
museums.
again, though, sort of traditional.
Yeah. And so, again, you may think that's kind of fussy having an art museum to begin with. I kind of like an art museum. We bring our kids to the Frist regularly, and there's an area where they can play and do
The
things.
Frist hands-on thing for the kids is pretty cool.
They
did that well.
It is.
Yeah.
But
I
it
know
would
what
be
you're saying about
it would
the
be
Frist.
nice to have a proper art museum.
We're saying Frist. It's Frist.
Yes, the Frist family. They're the founders of HCA Healthcare. One of the industries, in fact, that
The biggest employer in Nashville, I think, is HCA.
Could be. I don't know what the exact numbers, but healthcare
Certainly
is a very large
HCA
portion.
is certainly top 10 in Nashville.
It's one of the top healthcare is one of the top categories of businesses in Nashville, Middle Tennessee.
The Vanderbilt healthcare system.
Entertainment.
Vanderbilt healthcare system.
Well, that's
huge.
the university too, but
Right.
it's got a healthcare component. There are a number of very high quality universities in Tennessee. Vanderbilt, the University of Tennessee, which is in Knoxville. So there are a lot of other Middle Tennessee State University in Murfreesboro. There are affordable suburbs such as Mount Juliet, very good. Hendersonville is very good. Murfreesboro, it's about 40 minutes outside of Nashville, but it's quite good. But back to my gripes. I'd like to have a proper central library in Nashville. They've got one. It's okay. But again, we were just in Boston, and I took my family to the Boston main library, central library, and it's a beautiful building. It's a great library. You really feel like it's a place to study, to read, to learn, to research. And I'm a researcher, so I like that kind of environment.
Museum traditional, library traditional, right? Like a traditional library, sure.
So I'm going to get a lot of pushback by people on this because honestly, the economics don't make sense, but I like subways and trains. And so I taught my kids on this trip.
The Economist is making a point that doesn't make economic sense.
It doesn't make economic sense, but I'm just saying I like it. This is just a gripe. It doesn't make economic sense. Most in the United States.
But that's why Tennessee doesn't do it, because
they don't do it because it doesn't make economic sense.
Yeah.
I like them from a personal standpoint.
I will tell you quickly, they put in a subway, elevated subway, monorail, whatever.
They call it in Chicago.
In Culver City, and we rode it a few times, and it very quickly became, unfortunately, overrun with undesirable riders.
Yeah.
And it was over for us riding it.
So Boston, we were just in Boston, and they have a very good subway system. Now, it's not quite as good as DC's. DC has a gold standard subway system.
Better than New York's?
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I don't use... I have used New York's. I have used it. It's
deteriorated quite a bit, actually, just recently.
I wouldn't put my kids on it. In Boston, I trained them how to use subway, and it was great. It's to go to Cambridge from the city. It's really easy to do that, and back and forth, and you can move around the city pretty easily to the different areas.
All right, last gripes.
So I like subways and trains. Again, they don't make economic sense.
That's why they don't do them.
And they're all subsidized throughout the whole country. Any system in North America, in fact, is heavily subsidized by taxpayers. And so for that very reason, that's why we're not going to get it here.
Which is part of the boondoggle, the rail system in California that they finally pulled the plug on.
I would like to see more indoor tennis courts. This is, should
the people be wearing tube socks, or should they be wearing,
no,
this is a little specific, isn't it?
They don't have to wear Wimbledon white.
Dear Governor Lee, could you please put in more tennis courts?
I just like some place to play in the winter when it's cold, and there aren't a lot of publicly available.
You did say these were gripes. I will give you that.
These are just gripes. That's all they are. And that's it. Besides that, I'm pretty happy here.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any place that has all those things that you want.
No place has everything.
Right.
No,
Fair enough.
And if they did have these things, then they would have the undesirable high regulation and high taxes.
Sure.
And so I would choose to have smaller government, less regulation, less taxes.
You'd have to revise your Fannie Mae algorithm to better reflect the. Anyway, another great episode, Jeff. Appreciate it. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.